Dozens of Afrikaners who claim discrimination in their home country are heading to the United States,
right,
where your administration is going to welcome them as refugees. Now, this comes as you've halted virtually all refugee admissions for people fleeing famine and war from countries like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something. But we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of. But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And farmers are being killed. They happen to be white. But whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa. And the newspapers and the media, television media, doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. That would be the only story they'd talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place. So we've essentially extended citizenship to those people to escape from that violence and come here.
Well, the U.S. government has granted refugee status to Afrikaner South Africans, white Afrikaner South Africans who claim that they suffer discrimination in the country. The first batch of 49 left OR Tambo International Airport last night. Let's discuss this development with Ashraf Essop, an immigration and refugee expert. Ashraf, a very good evening to you. Firstly, thank you so much for your patience as we dealt with the various developments on this story. I'd like us to start with what sort of life awaits these 49 people when they land in the United States as refugees.
Hi, good evening. I would suggest that the kind of life that awaits them is atypical of the refugee experience generally. In the case that we're looking at, transportation was provided and fully paid for. There was an absolute orderly exit from the Republic. They would be landing and giving a press conference, apparently, and then whisked away to various destinations. In the interim, they would be granted the basics of human existence, which is shelter and food and support. I understand that even babies have gone with, so you can imagine the kind of care and attention. I'm sure medical care and attention will be extended to them as well. And then, very interestingly, we have to see what they would get in respect of their rights in another country, because when I had a look at the purpose behind the executive order, I mean, it reads quite interestingly. It says, in shocking disregard of its rights, its citizens' rights, South Africa recently enacted the Expropriation Act to enable government to seize ethnic minorities' agricultural property without compensation. So are they going to be given land to work with, fully paid for? And the second part of the purpose of the executive order says this act follows countless government policies designated to dismantle equal opportunity in employment, no doubt referring to BEE, education and business, and hateful rhetoric and government actions fueling disproportionate violence against racially disfavored landowners. So that's quite a mouthful. Let's say all of that happened here, then what you would expect at minimum is all of these things to have been corrected on that side. Full equal opportunity, education paid for, and education is not cheap if it's private in the US, as well as business. But generally, refugees are not prevented from following any of their chosen professions or lifestyles, or even for a short while, depending on state handouts in the US. So I think what we can expect to see from this departure is far better conditions than they enjoyed in South Africa.
Given what you're describing as an atypical refugee resettlement, shall we say, what are the implications then under this dispensation for, quote unquote, their right to return or travel in and out of South Africa, given that they've said that there are people who are leaving the country, fleeing a government that is persecuting them?
So typically, if you're a refugee and you re-avail yourself by visiting your country of origin or even requesting diplomatic assistance, let's say for a birth certificate or a police clearance certificate, then you're in violations of all the norms that are supposed to be protecting refugees. That means your claim cannot be supported, cannot be true, because here you are, you having fled the tyranny of the government or the country that you couldn't tolerate to live in. And now you're asking the same government and same country, oh, I need your help. Or if I return, I won't be harmed and I'll be able to continue my refugee status application elsewhere. But I was a bit concerned because suddenly the Trump administration today have announced that they'll be given citizenship. Now, citizenship is completely different from refugee status. Normally, the pathway is about 5 years. You obtain a green card, which is permanent residence, and you stay on that for 5 years, and then you apply for citizenship. But as you can see, special arrangements have been made for this particular group of people, and we don't know if they'll be granted instant citizenship. We'll have to wait and see.
Could a new administration, as often happens, especially in the United States, come in and basically scrap this whole arrangement?
Of course, nothing is cast in stone. It depends on the administration to administration, what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. For example, the refugee policy and the migration policy of the previous regime was undone immediately. So it could be if there's a new regime and they find that, look, the policy adopted by the Trump administration is not in their interest. Of course, they could reverse that. But we must understand as well that a lot of people with farming skills have already been employed in the US under the H-1 visas, and they've made a difference apparently to the farming community of the US. So obviously, any country will take in skills as long as they benefit by them. It could be that they develop into something else, or it could be that they sent back and on the basis that there is no real claim for refugee status because they didn't flee any persecution. There was one case that was tested years ago in the Canadian courts based on racial discrimination and fear of South Africa, fear of being attacked, and that case failed. And I think at the end of the day, that applicant did not secure refugee status.